Hello everyone, Mr. Happy Zap here with an update on my humble abode build. Today I guess I want to talk about my pressure side of my plumbing. I guess I'll start with being that I'm on out in the country basically, in a small village, but we're on our own well and septic, so I have a well. I don't have any city water. I don't have city water as they call it. So I have to actually really pump water from my well to my own pressure system. Once again, if you're in the city supplies you with the water, and it's pressurized water. But out in the country, where you have your own wells, you have to create that system yourself. So the first step is I had to figure out what to do for an actual pump and pump size. There's different types of wells. There's what they call points, where all they do is drive an 1.25 inch galvanized pipe into the ground with what they call a point on the end of it, and drive it down far enough until you actually capture water out of the ground. That's the most simplistic form. You can actually get dug wells, what I call a dug well. They're actually drilled wells, but they got large cement rings. And they can be anywhere from 3 to 4 feet across, and you drill down into the ground, and you have your water that way. And or you drill down and put anywhere from a 5-inch to 8-inch steel casing into the ground with what they call a screen on the bottom. Your first section is actually a screen where the water is allowed to filter through into the well cavity and fill the well up. And that's the style that I have. So my well is 32 feet deep. And it has what they call an 8-foot screen, so this actual screen height from the bottom of the well up is 8 feet. So you can kind of determine that from there. Anyway, being that I'm at 32 feet, I'm no longer classed as a shallow well. Shallow well is anything from 25 feet and smaller, I guess, less in depth. And so there's 3 different versions of pumps you can actually get. You can get a shallow well jet pump, a deep well jet pump, or you put in a submersible. And that's the reason when I originally purchased the place, it had an old point, and I tried to drive a new point down, but that didn't work too well. Actually what I tried to do is pull the old point out and try and reduce the point back down in there, but that didn't work out too well. So I had a well drilled, and I'm glad I did, because now I have plenty of water. So I been toying how to pump the water into my system. Now, being once again I'm over 25 feet, I can't use the conventional shallow well jet pump, which this is what this is. And for those from that aren't familiar with wells and whatnot, this is what they call a jet pump. So it's a centrifugal pump kind of deal, where it spins like this and literally pulls water from the well up, and then pushes it into what they call a pressure tank. And these pressure tanks are basically a reservoir, and this is where you get your volume from and hold pressure for keep your system pressurized. And these tanks are set up so that they have maximum 50 psi to them. There's a bladder inside there that as the pressure goes down, that's where you get your pressure from, because that bladder is pressurized with air. So as you push water in, literally that 27 pounds of pressure is like pushing on a balloon. That balloon's going to hold water back, and then it's got the pressure in the tank itself on the water side is going to increase. That's where you get your actual pressure. And anyway, getting back to this now. Also with the well, with these type with jet pumps, you have in the well itself, you have what is called a foot valve. And what that foot valve does is that when you start pumping water, the valve, it's like a valve, if you want to call it, inside. It pulls up, and then water can be drawn into and through the pump itself and into the tank. But then when the pump shuts off, the pressure of the water going back pushes down on that valve, so that the water can't backfeed, and then you end up losing your prime, because you have these pumps need to have water present and be able to pull water, so it has to be literally primed all the time, and that's what the foot valve does down there. And that's probably one of the main problems with that type of well system, is your foot valve gets stuck, and then it keeps draining back, and you got to replace it. And depending on what kind of well you have, it can be an easy fix. You can just get in there, pull your pipe up, put a new foot valve on it, or it can be a real problem, like with with points that have what they call a check valve inside of them. If that check valve goes, well, you've got this point driven down in the dirt, and trying to pull that back out can be a real pain in the butt. So anyway, so now then the other scenario is with a jet pump. They have what they call a deep well jet pump. There's two different styles. One is a single inlet like this here, and they're usually good for up to about, I don't know, 60 to 80 feet. And then they have another type where it's an actual 2-port, so you have to have another pipe that goes back down into the well that pushes water back through to kind of help with the lift. And those basically go down to about, you can get them down to, I guess, about 200 feet. But then the deeper you go, the less gallons per minute that you're going to get out of your pump. So the deeper you go, the bigger pump you need and the bigger horsepower you need. Now this here is only a half horsepower, and being it's a shallow well pump, it's not sufficient for my permanent system. So I would have to either get a deep well pump, a jet pump, single like this, but you have to keep in mind that they're only good for up to 90 feet, and once again, as the deeper you go, the more horsepower you need to get the volume of water that's required. Now this one's been sufficient, but in my case scenario with my probably my future water usage, I'm going to need at least a 3/4 horsepower jet pump with just a single port, because I'm just over that 25 feet. I'm at 32, so the actual if I was going with a jet pump, the foot valve would be sitting at about 30 feet, which, once again, that's 5 feet, so you're losing water volume. And being I'd have to go with a 3/4 horse motor, that's more energy draw. It's about 8 amps, 8.5 amps every time it comes on. So now the third type, once again, is what they call a submersible pump. The actual pump goes into the actual casing, well casing, and goes down in. So your motor and your pump and everything is inside and in the water, and you're literally, instead of pulling water, now you're pushing water. And being that you're pushing water, number one, you can use a smaller motor and pump to push the same amount of gallons per minute, and at the same time your energy usage is going to be less. So in the long run, a submersible, if you can afford it, is the way to go, and I've decided to afford it. Now you can get submersibles in my area anyway. I could anywhere between $600 to $1,600 depending on what I want in there. Now being I have a 5-inch casing, I can put a 4-inch pump down in there. And I was found out that if I were to put a crossed line start on a pump, in other words, the motor just starts bang right off the bat and it wings right up to full speed almost instantly. If there's any sediment that wants to collect in the bottom of the well, that could get stirred up and then get pulled up into your water system. So I was looking at a 3/4 horse here jet pump. I was looking at between $460 and $500 anyway, with the foot valve, good foot valve in the well. That problem wouldn't, I wouldn't have that problem stirring it up. But at the same time, energy usage and the gallons per minute and how fast the system recovers, that's the other thing. So I found a submersible. There's two styles. There's a 2-wire and a 3-wire. What a 2-wire is that you need your power wires down to the pump, and all the controls and everything are in the well, in the actual pump housing. And then there's a 3-wire system where literally you have a control box that sits up here, and all the control work is done up here. So therefore all you have in the actual well is the actual motor itself, which I kind of like that better, because in case you have any problems with the electronics, and these 3-wire well pumps, the better ones also have what they call a soft start, and the 2-wire system as well, but that's the $1,600 one, and the one I'm looking at, and it's a 3-inch, so it's a little narrower. So you have there's a little more room in between the walls of the well and the pump. But the 3-wire one I'm looking at is a soft start. It's a 4-inch diameter, but still, being as a soft start, I know that my well can easily supply me the volume I need. So, but once again, that's about $1,000. So having a control box up here, and usually it's the electronics that go, not the actual pump motor itself. So carrying on from there, of course, I have a string here just sitting in there. There's a 1-inch conduit going out to the well to provide a raceway for my wiring. And of course, here's my 1-inch poly coming from the well. Now, into my system, here I have my pressure tank. So the other one, the little one guy here, this is a 34-gallon pressure tank. And I purchased what they call a pressure tank manifold, if you want to call it. And it's all designed to accept, number one, your inlet, your outlet, a tap for, if you want, water in your basement. And also it helps with when you want to drain your water tank for various reasons. Probably the biggest one is that when you do have a well, there is some, my well has a small bit of iron in it, and it might be a little bit of sediment. All wells pull up sediment. You can't get away from it 100%. And periodically, once every 6 months, take down your pressure, use the water up, and then drain, push some water in, drain it until it becomes clear again. That way all the sediment's out of there and your tank will last a lot longer. Now here, of course, I've got the adapter to go to the poly, and I'm going to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing this around and put it in under 90, or I might have to put a 90-degree bend in here to be able to facilitate that so it works really well. Of course, I have a pressure gauge on here to check the pressure. This port here is what's going to be accepting this is the pressure switch, which will turn off the power to the control box, which will sit over here. It'll turn off, and that's what actually determines your pressure in your tank itself. Now, out of that, I came out two ways. One here, I came out from my two outside taps, and it has a shut off with a drain spigot on here. I guess under code you have to have that, so in the wintertime you turn your taps off, you drain this out so the water is let out of the line, and you leave it open so that your lines don't freeze up. Even though I have those special taps that are, I don't know, about a foot long, that actually, when you close them, the actual close off is like a foot inside, so really it's warm in there, but you still need to do this and drain it that way. So be it. It's what has to be done. I'd want to have a shut off for them anyhow, so I can shut them off. And then I have a shut off for the main household system here. So you shut this off, and I of course shut this off when I ever want to drain the tank or whatever. And even if these two were shut off, like so, and the system came on, pressure tank would still pressurize and shut off. No harm will be done to anything. As soon as you open up your valves, of course, if there's any pressure drop, if this pressure switch, okay, all it is just a contacts with high and a low pressure, and just clicks on and off and basically controls your circuit. So from there I went to, and I put in right off the bat, I put in I'll call it a sediment filter. It's not here designed to take out the iron or anything like that, although it might mitigate a little bit of that, but I'm not too worried about that part of it. And I'm going with just a high, like a lower high, like a filter that's not really tight, just enough, like I said, to filter out if there's going to be any particulate coming in. That way, it doesn't clog your taps and all the orifices that you have. If you have a dishwasher, that way sediment stops here. And I went with a clear case just so that you can watch to see how how clogged up this thing is. Might have to replace it, clean it out once every 3 months or something. But that's the that's the thing about living on a well and septic system. So anyway, out from there, I've got my inlet and my outlet, and from here I teed off. One goes to my water heater and the main part of the house, I guess, and the other one here comes across, and it's going to feed my two sinks. And as you can see here, I've got shut-offs for each one way, one the other. And then over here, of course, I put a shut-off for the water heater. So if I want to drain the water heater, which you should do once a year as well, because you might have sediment in there, you might have lime, you just never know. If you have a water softener, okay, that might be a different story. You probably won't have to do it as much, but my water here, I feel is soft enough. I wouldn't want to make it any softer. So I'm more worried about just sediment and that little bit of iron. And so come across, and using this PEX pipe, which is really neat. I used standoffs off my floor joists so that I didn't have them right on there, so I can insulate them, because you need to insulate a certain distance from the water heater itself on the hot side. So I'll probably be doing the same thing on the hot and cold, both ways, and that'll just help help with some heat loss or whatever. And then what happens is come around here and I come into, this is a copper manifold. They call it a manifold. I guess if I was looking at an electrical, maybe like a pre-made splitter trough or whatever. But anyway, I come off of them, so each one of my appliances has a shut-off. This one here, I've already got plumbed in. It happens to be my washer. Over here, I've got the PEX pipe already come in. I just have to tie it in. It's for my shower, and I'll have one for my sink, the bathroom sink, and one for the toilet, of course. So that makes it really nice and easy. Put your shut-offs in, unlike over there where I had to actually make the manifold. This manifold's already all done, so nicely in that way. You have, someone's having a shower and someone flushes the toilet, which with only one bathroom, chances of that happening are pretty slim. But anyway, or if you're doing a load of laundry comes on and you are having a shower, pressure drop part of it's not going to affect you as much. So I've done the same thing with the hot water. Okay, it'll be the same sequence. Now I've also got a hot water here shut off that's going to go to the toilet, and the reason I've done that is that we get older and they've got these fancy schmancy I don't know, you can adapt like a little bidet kind of thing onto your toilet, and I've used them before, and hey, they're kind of cool. My parents have them, and it kind of helps alleviate the use of toilet paper and whatnot a lot. So, and especially if you have a septic system, the less junk you put in the septic system, the less you have to get it pumped out. So, and it'll also help make the septic system last that much longer. So, like, once again, I've done the same thing. Now, I still have to finish connecting my the electrics on my water heater, and I explained to you in a previous video the reason I went with the electric water heater. So I still have to build with my 2-inch foam, build my insulating box around this to help even keep the heat longer in the tank. So that's something I'll probably be doing, probably into the fall, when I have some extra time. So now getting back to the reason the timer and whatnot. So I'm putting in this, I've got a little, what I call a control box, so I'm going to be putting in this little timer here. And this is a 24/7 timer, so, I can make it do all kinds of stuff, Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday, or 7 days a week, which will be 7 days a week. And program it so it comes on at 5:30, turns off at 7. And, plenty of time to heat the water up. And then turn it on at 7 at night till 8:30. Only because of this time of day billing we have with these smart meters. The energy costs are the cheapest between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's the reason I'm doing it. And really, you don't need to, depending on your water usage. I mean, if this was a family of 4, I definitely would have went with a gas water heater. But for 2 people, an electric water heater is much more. It's 1/3 the price just for the water heater itself, plus with gas and whatnot, you have to have specialized people come in and hook up your gas, has to be tagged and all that lovely stuff, and you have to vent it, and then you have the power vent motor on there, which could go. And really, when it comes to the actual longevity of the tank itself, you're not going to get any longer life out of a gas water heater than an electric. So over time, that cost of ownership and usage for a 2-person household this way, and putting on a timer with the override timer in case you need a little more during the day, is much more cost effective. The ROI is definitely there. So anyway, so I have that, and what this this timer does is controls this contactor here. I still have to wire things in yet here. And also the override timer up top will bring in this contactor, which then allows power to the water heater. Now I also have another switch in here, a double pole single throw switch for 240 volt. So you turn off both sides of the power to your pump, not just one side. And then so it'll be like the isolating switch for the pump. So when you want to work on it, you can just turn it on and off right here. So and then it's all, once it's all closed, nicely tucked away and out of sight, out of mind. So that's kind of what I wanted to update you on, the actual end of things here. And in the very near future, I'll explain away my HVAC system, and we'll I guess go from there. So I guess better get back at it. I got painting to do. So until next time, Mr. Happy Zap saying, keep a cool tool. Talk to you later. Bye for now.